Welcome back to the Gaming Grounds channel. It's your boy Action Jack, and as you see, the title of today is where I think the future of console gaming goes. I want to do a separate video in regards to, I guess you could say, controllers and games and all that other stuff. But right now, the main focus is console gaming, and I'm gonna try to keep this short and sweet. I don't want to keep it too long, but let's go ahead and get into it. So the main premise of why I wanted to make this video was looking at the, I guess you could say, the landscape of gaming right now. And you can look at it from two different ways. If you look at it from Switch's standpoint, there's a hybrid console and it's very successful at this point, right? We have Steam Deck coming up next, and that could possibly be something very successful when you include the dock into it. So I would constitute it as more of a hybrid PC situation. But then when you look at the other two with Sony and Microsoft, they're still going the tried and true console, upgrade your graphics, whole nine yards, right? So when we look at the grand scheme of what's being laid out to us and what we've had in the past, Sony and Microsoft seem to be the only ones still doing it the old-fashioned way. Now that's coming with fantastic sales from what we've seen. You know, we can't really decipher with how many actual customers purchased these consoles versus how many scalpers purchased it, but all you can do is go off the numbers, and the appeal and the demand seems to be there. For Nintendo, been on a roll, heavy, and we're, like I said, yet to see what happens with Steam. So to get into this video as into where my thought process is going, when you look at console gaming over the generations, starting from the NES and moving on up to where we are now, it's always been more or less of a graphical boost, controller layout change, and you could say some of the things kind of go into gaming as far as what they truly changed. But we didn't really see much of a change until we start getting into disc and Xbox introducing, online play. So for those of us that couldn't do local co-op, or just didn't care for local co-op because of the split screen nature of what came along with it, online helped a lot of people out. So you can kind of say that was an evolution of console gaming because of online gaming. And like I said before, with the controllers and disk space, and we talk about space and rumble packs and everything goes right. But the main hardware in itself has always seemed to remain the same. The controllers themselves change, but the consoles really never do. Even if you talk about the GameCube being in a smaller form factor, it still took this. It might have been mini disc, but it still took this. You're talking about the Wii U, where it had a brand new controller with asymmetrical gaming. It still had a standalone hardware system situation. We haven't gotten into hybrid until now. So for me, I felt like the future of console gaming is going to be hybrid. And here is why. I've made this comparison on Twitter. I've made this comparison before. A lot of what gaming does can kind of go hand in hand with what we look at with the smartphone market, right? The smartphone market is forever changing in the nature of what they want to try to present to you, what they want to try to sell to you. But we've noticed throughout time, we've gotten to this slab bar of a phone, and the fun phones have disappeared. If you want to see a series that's like that, go check out Mr. Mobile on YouTube, and he does a great series about when phones were fun, whether you talk about the flip phones, the sidekicks, and things of that nature. But that's besides the point. So when you look at the cell phone companies, or the different carriers, they used to have exclusivities. Android, from Motorola standpoint, used to be tied to Verizon. Then T-Mobile had the what is it, the Moto whatever, I forget what they had at the time. And then Apple, not Apple, but AT&T had iPhone. So they had their exclusivities, and that's what made them interesting. But when we come into time now, we have everything looks the same. You have at this point two OS at this point, from Android to Apple, and that's about it. Even LG themselves have tapped out. So when I look at the gaming platform, it's kind of similar. You have three platforms of Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, and before this generation, they were all still the same slab of hardware with just different internals and a different OS. So there was nothing truly appealing about them outside of the controller. The controller and the way you played the game was the only differing factor for the most part. that really changed how you would actually interact with these games. Now, when we look at the Switch changes all of that. The Switch gives you an opportunity to use motion controllers, handheld, tablet setup, and then also dock it to play on your TV. It gives you a different way of playing with the hardware and not just controllers. You know, if I wanted to pick up my Switch and take it to the back room, I have a dock back there. All I gotta do is lift up the Switch, take it back there, and drop it in. Opposed to unplugging stuff from the TV, unplugging it from the wall, lifting it up, taking it to the back, or even more costly, buying a brand new console on top of that. So I have two consoles in one household, um, which is not conducive for most people. So when I look at hybrid console gaming, and I know it's something that's been done for the first time this generation, the one thing that gives me the idea of this being the direction of gaming is backed off of Steam with the Steam Deck. And the reason why I say this is the Steam Deck for me is not in competition with the Switch. If you've been around long enough, if you have common sense, you know it's not for the competition of the Switch. It's not going to push Nintendo to do anything different because they're not within the same realm. You know, Nintendo is more of your introductory console, and some people stay, but then some people, go off into PC, Xbox, or Sony because that's the graphic powers, the upgrades, the storytelling, the shooters, the sports, and all the other stuff that some of them Nintendo gets, but not all. But nonetheless, we've gotten out of the idea of not wanting console games on handheld anymore. So this hybrid nature in itself can work. I remember when the Vita dropped, that was one of the bigger complaints. I don't want to play long, strenuous games with these console-like experiences on a handheld. I'd rather have my PS3 or my PS4 to do that, right? It was an issue. We wanted short situations, short stints here and there with handheld gaming because you could literally close it, didn't have to turn it off, open back up. You're right where you are. There's no save states necessary. It was what it was. It was very simplistic and straightforward. The graphics were not the best, but it gave you the satisfaction that you needed. And even if you did want to play something that had a lot of hours to it in the vein of a Pokemon or a vein of a Bravely Default or anything like that, it still made it accessible for you to just do it real quick, get a couple battles out, and then just shut it down and be done with it. Now we've gotten to the point to where those same type of games have evolved into console experiences, but they still hold that essence of handheld, so therefore it works in that hybrid nature. With anything that comes along with consoles, the games have to be there for it to work. And I feel like with Vita, most games that they tried to put over there, people didn't feel like it was appealing enough, or it wasn't a handheld experience. It was still a console experience, and they didn't want it at the time. But things change. A lot of people want to bring up, history, but at the same time, things never stay the same, especially within gaming. So when we get into where I feel Steam plays a pivotal role with this, I feel like PC in itself, if you're talking about competition between anyone in regards to graphics and bringing people to that next level of games and, getting all of the fidelity, the ray tracing down, the frames per second, the customization, all of that, it plays in the role of PC, Xbox, and Sony. So if Steam comes to the market with Steam Deck, and as they've expressed, they're changing the OS to give you more of a console-like experience, that now taps on the door of Microsoft and Sony. So if Nintendo's successful with the Switch, that really doesn't force Sony and Microsoft's hand. When we look back at the Wii, the only reason why we saw PS Move and Connect was because of the Wii, but once again, it was still kind of sort of playing in that camp of, hardware console up under your television. There was, no competition for the most part trying to gear towards 3DS outside of the Vita. There was nothing coming from Xbox in that nature. They wanted to do smart glass and all this other stuff. That wasn't necessarily the same thing. But now things have changed. Nintendo has combined their their handheld with the console teams and have made one solid hardware as far as hybrid. And if Steam executes this properly to where you have your Steam games, you have Game Pass, you have Xbox games that's on Steam, and PlayStation exclusives that are coming over to PC as well, this could really give Sony and Microsoft an idea of possibly dabbling in the hybrid nature and not just handheld. Things have changed, like I explained, and feelings and wants and things of that nature have changed. There's people now that said they would love to play Horizon on the go or play Last of Us on the go because public transportation or people are taking Ubers now, so therefore they want to game more. Even if you're talking about in the lens of people using this as a reliever or a stress reliever, a depression reliever, it's something that most of us would love to move around, go to a certain location where we're comfortable, whether it's sitting outside on your porch or sitting outside at the park, and enjoy these games so that way you kind of double up on the stress reliever. And that's something that the Switch in itself does provide. So when the Steam Deck presents itself, I feel like the only way you get PlayStation and Microsoft to pay you any attention in that realm and not say, okay, well, that's just for PC gamers, is if they set up a nice package for casual gamers to enter. Now, they're already, stopping that from happening by only making this available via their website or via, the Steam app or whatever you're using. It's not in retail stores, which, at this point in time, it kind of helped with the scalpers, but at the same time, it doesn't give enough attention to those that don't pay attention as much as we do on Twitter or on YouTube. So the way Steam can kind of paint this as a perfect picture to possibly get all of us, all of the companies to move in that hybrid nature and start taking things a little more serious as far as, gaming whenever you can without having another device, is if they give you the Steam Deck. Let's start with the entry point of $400, right? You have the entry point of $400. Everything in itself works, is compatible, blah, blah, blah. Then the dock itself shows up. And let's say, just for what I've seen before on other PC handheld docks, at $80, right? So at this point, you're looking at $480. And let's say Steam either re-releases the Steam controller or they make a brand new Steam controller to bundle in with said dock. And with that bundle, if you say get all three, opposed to you paying, because I think the controller was like $50 at the time, so I said it was like $480 at that point, so it would come down to $530. Let's take about $520 if Steam wants to take another hit of $500, right? So they can be in that 500 realm, which would compete with the PS5. It would compete with the Series X, and you have a hybrid situation. And it has the graphics and the things that people clamor that they want from the Switch Pro, right? So you have a Steam controller, you have a dock, and you also have a handheld that gives you the power that people are looking for. And this in turn would, compete, because those conversations as far as who's up top and who's pushing the next generation has always been about graphics for some odd reason, even though there's more to it. If we're talking about in that graphics nature, that's going to be PC, Sony, and Microsoft. This would force Sony and Microsoft's hand to me. If Steam even remotely hints at this, we'll give you a controller, we'll give you a dock, we'll give you the lowest variant of Steam Deck for $500. Not to mention, if for whatever reason you just got some controllers laying around, some Xbox controllers, 8BitDo controllers, PS controllers, Switch Pro controllers, whatever, Logitech controllers, for whatever reason, mouse and keyboard as well, you don't necessarily have to buy our controller, but you can. And this is going to be more of a console-like experience coming from Valve. So to me, at that point, yes, Microsoft and Sony are in a rough spot right now with system shortages and just dropping brand new consoles just last year. It's something they'll have to start looking at and taking serious, because in the nature of releasing, let's say releasing earlier than Steam Deck, but then releasing after Switch with this success, you have two different situations and you're dead in the middle to where you're still doing things the old way. This is still the old fuddy-duddy way. Hey, people want a box with online service and graphical push with a controller. Sony changed it a little bit with the DualSense controller, but it's still nonetheless the same controller, and most people I know turn all those features off. So they're not doing anything appealing. Same concept I gave with cell phones. You look at the next iPhone coming out. People always look forward to the new iPhones, but I can guarantee you, especially based off of watching Marquise's Brownlee video, the form factor is still the same. The cameras switch around a little bit, but those get somewhat of a bump. And it's really the same phone as the 12. It just may have spec bumps, and your your OS is what changes, which they all get over a span down to, I want to say, iPhone 8, maybe 10. So the OS is what genuinely pushes the changes. The phone itself, most people are not taking pictures like that anyway. Most are taking selfies or on social media. So having 120 hertz cell phone screen and having 4K really isn't, it's nice, but it's not something that they're utilizing. I know people that have the Samsung S21 Plus and don't take half of the advantage of what the phone does, right? To where a person like myself would. So it really isn't necessary for them to own a phone of that expense, but because it's brand new and it's marketed and it's in your face as the best thing out there, that's what happens. And I feel like that's the same thing with the Series X and the PlayStation 5, because I feel like the Series S is a great console, but it doesn't really get touted as something you should purchase because it doesn't have the latest and greatest and the highest specs that's on a sheet that most people that talk about it don't even understand what the hell it means anyway. But when we look at how smartphones in themselves are changing, they're trying to, like I said, appeal with the cameras for you to take pictures. They're trying to, make things as much as wireless as possible. And they're also trying to make screens foldable. And so they're trying to go back to the form factor changes again. And that's where I get into it with the hybrid nature. Yes, PlayStation 5 is cool. It looks nice. Yes, the Series X is cool. It looks nice. The Series S looks cool. It's nice. The PS5 digital is nice. But when it all comes down to it, it still is a typical hardware console, which most people like. Most people don't like change. But when you talk about the accessibility and the things that you can do outside of just the portable nature of it, is just pure convenience of, hey, I have a dock under my TV, and then I can also take that same Steam Deck and plug it up to my monitor for me to game on my monitor. Or if I don't want to do that, I can just have Steam with this OS seamlessly have all that stuff transferred over save wise where I am in the situation of the game and pull it off of my PC that's powerful enough to do so as well. The sky's the limit. And granted, if you still are one of the lucky few to have a Steam Link, you can have Steam Links that were at 1.5 bucks all over your house, and that would work perfect too. So they kind of have things that they can bring back to the market. Will they do it? I don't know. But with a mixture of the controller, the dock for the deck, and the Steam Deck in itself, along with your PC if you have a PC, a laptop if you have a laptop, or a Steam Link if you have a Steam Link, that is the closest you can get right now as far as a console-like experience with a PC. No matter, even if you take your PC and plug it up to your TV, you're still going to go through the headaches of having, either a smaller keyboard, a mouse and keyboard for you to navigate. Yes, you can, boot straight into big picture mode, but it still doesn't feel like a plug and play experience, to where it seems like that's what Valve is trying to do with the new Steam OS, which I think we're supposed to be getting pretty soon, even on PC, so we can kind of get a feel and look at the OS in itself, regardless if you own a deck or not. But yeah, I mean, I feel like hybrid gaming is the next big push, because we haven't had any hardware changes since the NES for real. It's still been something that's under your TV that comes with a controller. Yes, I understand form factor changes, graphical changes, controller changes, all of that has happened, but it doesn't, go away from the standard box that's under your TV until the Switch showed up. And with the Switch doing this, partnered with Steam possibly being, successful with this, if they are. I don't feel like they are, because the appeal is not necessarily there per se. It's just the marketing and who is going to truly appeal to seems to be the hardcore crowd that already owns a very hefty computer, which, it is what it is. But I would love for it to succeed. But if you have on the creative, low graphical end, but yet still accessible with moving parts on the Switch end, and then you have the Steam Deck that goes for the power and the thing that people claim they want, and you don't have to do too much tinkering, but then they have an OS that also brings you in the same way, PlayStation and Microsoft brings you in. The sky's the limit. You have, differing ends, but yet they still do the same thing. So even for Nintendo with the 10th generation console, I feel like they're going to still stay in hybrid, but they're going to start revisiting the Wii U aspect of it, to where, unfortunately, they may go back to a hard body situation, but yet the Switch or the screen or the controller plays a role, or they just may upgrade the dock And then that way, same way with the Steam Deck, you're getting all the power and the things that these developers claim that they want, and the, you know, the hardcore crowd claims that they want, but it's just via that dock if you don't play handheld. So I think it's you know pretty interesting. I think I'm onto something, but you know y'all let me know down in the comments, and let me know on Twitter too. And I might put up a poll as well. Like, do you feel hybrid consoles are the future? You know, especially with the Steam Deck and the Switch kind of kicking it off. Do we think, you know, more PC companies get involved with this? I don't think they will, but does Apple tap into this to where it pushes it even further with a hybrid PC side of things? And does Nintendo keep pushing it? And then at that point, we see the future, and Sony and Microsoft gets on board. VR is ways off. I see PlayStation, you know, trying to get into it, but I don't think it's anywhere close to where it needs to be right now. AR is not anywhere close where it needs to be. XR is not where it needs to be right now. So if we're looking at getting away from these hard boxes and possibly going into the digital atmosphere, or for Nintendo cartridge atmosphere again, this is the route. And I feel like if Sony and Microsoft want to go digital, and then Microsoft wants you to be able to play their games everywhere. So instead of telling people to use their phones where batteries are not going to hold up, or use their tablets to where it doesn't seem too conducive for you to bring a bigger controller, make something that can of this, and it works. But I credit also too for this video Andre, the gamer idea guy. He did something similar to this with Xbox before Steam Deck was even announced. So go check that video out. I think he called it like the Xbox Series P. But definitely go check that out. And then yeah, man, I mean, just let me know, like I said before, your thoughts on the whole situation. It's been your boy Action Jack with yet another video, and I'm out. Peace.